Now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute.
Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Well, this is the 253rd time in the last 5 years that we have done a Ray Longo Minute, but there is nothing like doing the Ray Longo Minute after one of his big three. Chris Weidman, Ally Quinter, Aljamain Sterling comes up with a win and a finish, and man, that Ally Quinter-led quarter did a good job Saturday night.
Oh, without a doubt, man. Look, and I think that's for me, that's the beautiful thing is that I think the culture of this gym is like a family, and those guys in the corner, that was Dennis Bazooka and Steve Lee and Al. Al's always the third guy in the corner. He stepped up. They did a great job with this kid. Not only a win, but a fucking statement. I mean, that's the key to me is he came out aggressive. He got what he wanted. Listen, Aljo on your back. I don't give a fuck if you're 135, 145, 155, whatever it is. You don't want that guy on your back. And I see that, even in sparring, man. I mean, he's a handful. I don't care what your weight is. You can't let that guy on your back. And I think he showed it the other day. And we did kind of know that, Stamann is, not Stave, sorry about that. We get to him in a minute. Corey Sandhagen is, he was too comfortable on the floor. I think Lineker or maybe a Sunser had his neck. He looked like it. You cannot do that with Aljo. That was the difference. Did I think it was going to get to the floor that fast? Not really, but I did. That was a scenario for sure in my head. And I think when we found out the octagon, how small it was, and even compared to what we have in the gym, at first I thought it wasn't going to be an advantage, but it ended up being an advantage. And Sandhagen, what we were worried about was the pace coming forward. But you know what? A lot of those guys that can walk forward, they just don't. They look like a different fighter going backwards, and I think that's what you saw. And again, Aljo on the floor was where his strength was. No, I don't care what weight you are. I mean, he's that good. His MMA jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. Probably up, if not the best, up there with anybody.
Yeah. Kenny, we're obviously going to celebrate the shit out of this win from an Aljamain Sterling perspective, but I do want to get your thoughts on Corey Sandhagen. And also, we might as well inject the octagon size into the conversation here because the measurables are unbelievable. It is 30.5% smaller, Kenny, 745 square feet versus 518 square feet. I know you've competed in both. Feels like a different sport for me. Your thoughts on this quick fight and how the cage might have impacted the matchup?
It's always going to favor the grappler, in my opinion. Having that smaller octagon, first of all, just brilliant on the part of Aljo and his team to turn it into a grappling match right from the get-go. He had a beautiful shot, put him up against the cage, and just kind of that little throw-by that he did. Sandhagen was in trouble. Once he had the back, this did not look good. And even as far as, Aljo, really, with the control, it was just unbelievable. These are two elite guys at 135 pounds, right? And the fact that Aljo was able to get it done this quickly was a huge statement. And in a time where sometimes you don't know whether the number 2 guy, the number 5 guy, the number 8 guy is going to get a title shot, Aljamain Sterling just told everyone to fuck off, basically.
Yeah, he did.
Now, this shot is mine. Seriously. And I thought it was going to be a really close fight. Ray, I actually picked Sandhagen by a close decision. I thought that he'd be able to outpoint him round by round. Aljo knew where he had the strength. Aljo knew that, hey, listen, maybe I can strike with him, right? Maybe I can steal some rounds here and there, but I know I'm going to be the better grappler. And that was the smart approach. Aljo knew he had the strength advantage there. He knew he was going to be the better grappler if he got on top, and just took full advantage of it. I was blown away by Aljo's performance.
And I got to tell you got to remember, look at Aljo, how he came out. And this is even a surprise to me. A little bit, but just a frantic pace. He's quick, he's moving, he's throwing kicks, you're responding. He almost went for a cut kick, I think, and they grabbed that leg, and that was it. But he never took a step back. I mean, it was very quick. Look, and this will be a blip on the radar for Sandhagen. That kid can fight. I was 100% concerned with a lot of things in this fight. I think that kid is great. I love his style, and he 100% will be back. But Aljo he seized the moment, man, and he knew he had to make a statement, and he did. And these are the things that excite me in MMA, in any sport. You know what I mean? When you see this type of behavior come out. And look, you got to remember, Aljo was on a 4 or 5 fight win streak. The fights he lost, you could make a case for he won. So he's fought the best of the best, and his losses, with the exception of the knockout to Marlon, which literally took on a short notice, that was a replacement for who he was supposed to fight. The good jiu-jitsu guy, what's his name? Ken. He's an older guy, but his jiu-jitsu's good.
Not talking about Johnny Eduardo back in the day, right?
No. Oh man, he just lost to Simone.
Ray Borg.
No. Whatever. He's an old.
Well, either way, Ray.
The point is that I'm sorry, Kenny. The point is that I can make a case for Aljo. With the exception of Moreza, he's got 7-8 wins in the last 9, whatever it is. The fight with Asuncao, I thought he won. Was a close fight though, and the fight with
Ronnie Yahya.
Ronnie Yahya. He was supposed to fight Ronnie Yahya, and this is almost like what happened with Ferguson. You go from a jiu-jitsu guy to a fierce striker. Ferguson went from a fierce wrestler to a unbelievable striker. These are the things you should be able to adjust, but I was not in favor of that fight because of the timing of it. And, but again, to Aljo's credit, man, look what he did. That was a pretty bad knockout. He came back and rattled off 5 in a row with the elite of that division. Phenomenal performance, attitude-wise, character-wise, everything. It's just, and again, I think the culture of this gym is so tight. And I said it like with the quarantine, because those guys did a great job with him. And, Al had his garage, and he wouldn't do that for anybody. Trust me, he would not. Right. But Aljo, nobody had fights. Everybody was dedicated to him. That's one good thing with the quarantine. It's not like, well, this guy's got to fight. He's training this day, or he's got to get ready for his. We're bringing in this. Everybody was focused on Aljo, and he had the same cast of characters, but even with more focus. And I think the camaraderie of that whole dog pound really just made him rise to another level. You know what I mean? So I just love his attitude right from the get-go, man.
In a time where everyone loves to make excuses, whether it's a bad decision or whatever it is, Aljamain Sterling has clearly been working on his game and working to get better. And it's amazing to see. And it also shows that he's elite because Sandhagen is a terrific fighter. And when you see a guy who can take advantage, it was one mistake. It was one mistake that Sandhagen made, and that was it. And that's what shows that Aljamain Sterling can be a champion in this sport. It's those guys who have that killer instinct, who can capitalize on little things that's going to separate you from just everybody else.
Yeah, and he really believes in his jiu-jitsu skills more than any other skill set. I'm saying he believes in that jiu-jitsu skill set, and that's, you heard him say even a Matt Serra black belt, there's different levels. He gets to train with really, really good guys. And Kenny, your buddy is off the charts with jiu-jitsu. You just
absolutely.
Now his name, Ryan Hall. I mean, that kid is phenomenal. Jiu-jitsu-wise, I'm sure. Who the hell's touching that guy? You know what I mean? So there's different
It's such
levels.
an advantage, man. Yeah,
it really is. And Aljo's not at that level. Like, I think Ryan's a different game, but Aljo, his squeeze strength, his wrestling combined with the jiu-jitsu is a major problem, because even if he doesn't get you down, he could get you in a position where that's all he needs is just to get a hook in, get on your back. And again, I don't care what weight you are, you don't want the guy on your back.
Right. Yeah, Aljo's got a good feel for that carotid artery, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no.
Some fucking blood chokes can flow, right?
I love it.
I sound like I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't.
The guy tapped and went to sleep. But look, I don't want to take anything away from Sandhagen. That kid, there's no question in my mind he bounces right back, and he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that win is going to age gracefully, and I do think this will be a mental hurdle for him. I mean, thrill versus agony for Corey Sandhagen, and everything that he put into this training camp for this fight and this matchup to not even be able to throw a strike. He landed one strike. It's got to be pretty debilitating.
Yeah. No, and I'll tell you what, we had really a good look for Aljo. It was maybe when I asked Aljo, he said no. The kid we used was maybe like an inch or two bigger, but
wow,
he was ready for the stand up. But again, you have to play to your strengths. I love what he did. He made that guy go backwards, and he got him against the cage, and that was it, man. It was short and sweet and really great to watch. And again, just he really earned it, And John, you were always a big advocate of Aljo from day one. You know what I mean? So hats off to you too, because I think you always believed in him.
Maybe more than you at times, man. I've always thought he was going to
maybe.
be champion, you know?
Maybe. I'll tell you, I used to listen to you, and I just, me, everything's a progression. I want to make sure, like even I told Aljo after this, I want you to have a good time. I really do. I want you to have a great time. But you might be getting a title shot quicker than you think. You have to stay in shape, and it's going to be a 5-rounder. You cannot go off the rails as much as you want to right now. I think there's a good chance Aldo, something happens, and he's right in there. So I hope he listens, and I think he will. But again, work hard, play hard. You got to go out. You got to party.
He deserves it.
Yeah, he deserves it. I don't want to take that away, but you got to keep the big picture in mind. And you made it this far. You earned that shot. Let's fucking be ready at all times.
Don't stop now.
Especially now. You don't know when the calls are coming. Look what they're doing. They're recycling fighters every 3 weeks.
Yes.
It looks like. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. If you are Brian Kelleher or Ray Borg or Courtney Casey and you have been willing to make that quick turn, it can be richly rewarding. And you're right. He could be fighting for the belt in 6 weeks, and Longo could find himself on Fight Island. So at least right now, it looks like it's going to be Petr Yan or Jose Aldo, who is next for Aljo, right? One of those two guys who will presumably fight for the bantamweight title. But Ray, he took it out of the matchmaker's hands. I mean, Aljo literally took it out of the promotion's hands. Dana White has now said he's going to be next, even if he does have to wait 6 or 7 months. Ray, you can't let him sign a bout agreement that isn't for a shot at the undisputed title. It's got to feel pretty good to hear that.
100% agree. I would definitely not. I'm surprised that he said, even in the interview, strange things. No, Aljo, you're fighting for the fucking title.
I know.
Period. That's it. You're fighting for the title. And that's it. You earned it, and you're fighting for it. You earned it before this, and you're fighting. Now you're definitely fighting for the title. If you're asking me, I'll tell you, everybody who's listening, do not sign that bout agreement unless it's a title shot. You earned it. It's not even, it's not right. It wouldn't be fair. We know Aldo's a big name. You know what I mean? I get that part, from a money, but this kid earned it. You got to give him the shot.
Yeah. So Cody Merrow, who is our chief marketing officer, produces Aljo's podcast. And he texted me, Kenny, that the betting line for Jose Aldo versus Petr Yan, right? Mm-hmm. You got Yan minus 240.
Wow.
And Jose Aldo Jr. plus 205. Wider than I expected for sure. Now, I'm not saying that just on the strength of this 5-fight winning streak and the win over Corey Sandhagen, that Aljo is definitely the favorite against Petr Yan, but I do think it's a whole lot tighter than that. I mean, I think Jan Sterling is a pick-em fight for me, but Aldo plus 205 right now.
That sounds juicy. That sounds juicy to me. You won't see Aldo with those numbers too often, especially against a guy who, certainly doesn't have the experience. He's fresher, no doubt, has less miles on him, right? But doesn't have the experience of a Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo not getting respect from the bookies.
Yeah, I think that those odds seem way off to me.
Yeah.
So Ray, before we get to Merab Dvalishvili, want to get to anything else you might have on UFC 250, particularly Cody Stamann.
Yeah.
This has to go down as one of the more remarkable performances that I have ever seen in my life. And Ken Flo obviously can relate to this deeply in terms of losing a brother and what the aftermath, the immediate aftermath, I should say, of that is. But for Cody Stamann, who broke down in our fighter meeting, and you knew that the emotions were going to be bottled as best he could until the fight was over, and then they would come pouring out, and that's exactly the way it went down. But I just don't know, Kenny and Ray, how you compete in that setting. I mean, I can't relate to the physical toughness of these athletes, never mind the mental nor emotional toughness. Yeah. But Kenny, I'll start with you, man. I just don't know how Cody was able to compete as well as he did.
Neither do I. There's times where maybe he just needed to go out there and express himself and kind of unleash that energy. I think that's probably what that was about. But having to put those emotions aside and really focus on a tough guy in Brian Kelleher, I thought was really impressive. I'm not sure we've really seen anything like that, a turnaround quite like that after the loss of a brother. I can't even imagine. My heart goes out to Cody and his family. Such a difficult thing to deal with, man, and having to go out there and fight during these times under all this craziness that's going on in the world. It was very amazing, and it was very emotional to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had the pleasure of spending some time with Cody in Japan when I had Sasaki fighting. Crookshank fought on the card. Those guys are good guys, man. That thing killed me the other night. Killed me. Cody Stamann.
Man.
I mean, we spent this. We were in the same locker room. He's a good guy. Crookshank's a great guy. They had a girl with him. She was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how it's. I just hope he found some sort of peace and solace in just fighting and letting it out. Everybody's different. I don't know how the hell he did it, but what a great performance. And I got to tell you, Kelleher is a nice guy. He's from Long Island. I never root against Long Island. I'm not saying I was rooting, but in my head, Stamann had to win that fight. For what should be good in the world, he deserved that win against a tough guy. And I got to tell you, I give Kelleher credit for even jumping in there in that thing, because everybody's emotional. Everybody has feelings. Everybody's hopefully has some sort of empathy. That was such a crappy thing that the only result was what we saw. He had to win that fight. It made me feel great. Like, again, anything I could ever do for you, Cody, I would. The few times I met you, always been a gentleman. It just sucks, man. But I hope he found some sort of happiness in that, which I think he did. It was a great performance. His stand-up looked on point. He did look great at 45, and man, that's just a tough. I just hope he's finds some sort of peace, and he can move forward, because that's a tough. And Kenny, like you said, it, and I think there was a situation years ago where Jim Miller lost his baby, he lost his kid, and he fought like 2 weeks later. So these are tough people, man. These are mentally tough people, and they find a way, and they have the resolve, and just the mental fortitude to push through and just do what they love to do, and they know they're doing it for the right reason. I'm sure Cody's brother would have never wanted him not to take that fight. You know what I mean? So he just hats off to him. I just hope he's okay, and I can't relate to it because I've never gone through it, but I could tell you emotionally I was in tears, so I know I felt it, and I just hope he's okay.
I know DC lost an uncle once during fight week, and he had to really shut the family out, and he ended up submitting Rumble Johnson that weekend. But for Cody Stamann, I mean, this was his 18-year-old brother the week before the fight. And for Ken Flo, obviously your younger brother, my younger brother had open heart surgery a couple years ago, and those were the longest 9 hours of my life, I can tell you that, So just so much respect for Cody, and certainly for Brian Kelleher, who obviously would have felt horribly, I think, if he had finished Cody. I think you're right, Ray. There was some divine intervention with that outcome. All right, before we let you go, Merab and the team staying out in Las Vegas. He's fighting Ray Borg coming up this weekend. He's a massive favorite. Your guy Merab getting a lot of respect from Las Vegas, Ray. And truly maybe because of the way those first two fights went, isn't on the ascent that he could be. You and I have talked privately, could be 5-0 in the UFC right now.
Without a doubt. I think that's a no-brainer. In my book, he's 5-0. And just I don't even want to rehash what happened in Jersey, but just give him an A+ for fucking balls and toughness and just willing to die in the octagon. You got to give that guy credit. Plus, he's a great kid. He was part of Aljo's camp. He's always in shape. If you ever watch his videos, he was nonstop. You gotta love this. You gotta love him. Did you get a chance to talk to him?
I didn't get to talk to him, but I find myself on his Instagram feed pretty regularly these days. When they called me about the fight, the kid that manages the gym, Steve Lee, I go, listen, talk to Merab. He'll tell you exactly what he's feeling. If he wants that fight, that's good enough for me. I mean, because he's very, very just honest, and you always get just a practical opinion from him. You know what I mean? So he's a down-to-earth kid. He's humble. He's grateful for everything he's got. I think everybody could learn from him. I'm telling you, we need more of those guys in this world. That's all I can say. He's really a unifying force, I think, for the team, too, even if English is his second language,
Listen, look, in the times we're at now, which are crazy, I mean, look at all the different personalities we have in this gym, and colors and ethnicities. What I love about sports and music, it transcends all that bullshit. You don't see color. You don't see anything. You just see a person. You see a human. You see a friend. And we have so many people from Albanians to, he's from Georgia, black, white, Spanish. It doesn't fucking matter. When you're in the gym and you're on a team, it all comes together. And I think that's what everybody has to learn from, man, because definitely can all get along. And I don't want to even go to that, go into that. But just Merab is a good guy. And I'm telling you, the world could use a lot more of those guys. He's a pleasure to be around. You can never be down when he's around.
Yeah.
And if something's wrong, he's there. He's got his shoulder. You could cry. He's just a great kid.
Yeah.
I really a great kid. And look, Aljo's staying out there. Thank God he didn't get hurt. But those guys are sticking together, man. And again, I don't want to take credit for anybody's wins, but I want to take credit for the culture of this gym and the way they bond together for so many years. You guys know, Kenny, it's hard to keep a place together. Different personalities, opinion. It's tough, man. I don't know how much longer we could do it, but man, I'm so proud of those guys stepping up. It sucked for me being on the couch. That's definitely the worst place for me. I was gonna type something in between. I couldn't even get my fingers going. I was panicking. My fingers were stuck. Thank God he got that thing out in the first round. I wouldn't have made it to the second round. But again, these guys are phenomenal. They're loyal guys. They stick together. And, I think it's a second family for a lot of people. And that was just, that win was so good for so many reasons. It's
incredible.
If he would have lost, I probably would have hung myself today. You know what I mean? But those guys, Al did a fucking great job. Who doesn't respect Al? I mean, I'm going to say, even Aljo's, I called it the ripple effect or trickle down MMA. When Al beat Kevin Lee that time, man, he inspired Aljo, and Aljo went out. He had that performance against Munoz, and he's on a roll now. He's on a tear, and I love that, I love that ripple effect concept, man, where one guy does good and it just inspires a whole team of people, and that's life, man. That's life to me.
Well, congrats on a huge W, buddy, and the pre-fight parade and everything was great. And I almost wanted to FaceTime you before the fight and just have you there on mute, but I thought it would distract me on the broadcast. So enjoy it. And, despite what they say on the streets, Ray, you're actually a pretty decent guy too. So congrats on the W. And
before I forget, too, I'm going to say you, DC and Joe, what a great team. What a great synergy, great chemistry. Love seeing DC coming into his own, man. He's a force to be reckoned with, man. He's getting more comfortable. Now he's funny. He's insightful.
Yeah, he's letting it go.
And no matter what he says, who's going to argue with that guy? He'll dump you right on your fucking head.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the guy's really just become a personality, man. He's definitely got a career, and it's been nice to really watch you guys.
Well, thanks. Looks like we just lost Ray Longo, but I appreciate the sentiment and all the feedback on the broadcast.
Oh, man.
There he is.
I can't get you back.